What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates review, taking a look at another figure out of the Conan the Barbarian first wave. And this wave is very villain heavy, so we're taking a look at another villain today. We've got Thorgrim this time around. So this is not Thulsa Doom's second in command, but he's one of the higher ups in the Cult of Set. So we've got him here in the standard Ultimate style packaging. So of course you've got that sort of unique trapezoidal style design package with a really cool slipcover. So that's a hallmark of these things when it comes to each of the Ultimates lines. They all have the slipcover, but they're all unique in their own ways. This one is really cool because it mimics the sort of a leather aspect of their armor and like a sword sheath, things like that. It's also really textured, so all of them feel like this. You've got the Conan logo embossed on the front, and then the back has got an embossed sort of relief of one of his swords, which is really cool. So they're all unique. And then, as usual, you can pop that slipcover off and you've got the figure there in his actual packaging. So he's there in the window, you've got the Conan logo on the bottom, and then of course on the back you've got a double-headed serpent emblem, and then a big bio for Thorgrim as well. So, as usual, great packaging. It's collector-friendly, so you can take this out, put him back in if you want. I'm a big fan of this design. It looks fantastic. It displays really well, but of course, we've got to do it. So, let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Thorgrim figure. So one of our handful of bad guys that we are getting in this first wave, and maybe a character that, I don't know, a lot of folks don't necessarily care about or possibly even remember, but in the confines of this line, I think that these guys are actually pretty solid. Like, there is a lot going on with this particular figure, as well as Rexor, when it comes to their design and just how they, I suppose, how they fit the Motu Classics-ish style of figure here. I see a lot of people maybe mixing this guy and Rexor in with like Mythic Legions and stuff like that. They definitely have that kind of appeal. So let's get started and see what this guy can do, see how he moves around. He is gonna be, as you might expect, a Motu Classic style figure, although there is a slight little difference when it comes to moving some parts around, but otherwise he is very familiar territory. So we've got a head that really is kind of locked down. He has a flowing, beautiful mane, head of hair there, so you can't really look up. He can go down surprisingly well, though. There is a little bit of tilt, though. The hair doesn't necessarily sit 100% on the armor, so it does allow for some movement, and then you've got rotation, but the hair does get in the way. Like, you can get him to go probably as far as you truly need, but it is kind of a tight fit. The arms go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate all the way around. He doesn't have a traditional bicep swivel. I mean, it's there. It's a lower bicep swivel rather than an upper, so they didn't cut into this armor. They actually have it here where he's got his like sort of chainmail armor that begins there. You've got a single jointed elbow, we've got hinges, and we've got rotation at the wrist, so normal stuff there. You do have an ab crunch. He goes backwards, and then he goes forwards. It's kind of a tight fit, and it's all due to this armor. So all of this stuff is sculpted in there, and it almost kind of catches on it in some ways. Hasn't been really a problem, but it does make him, it makes him feel more ratchety than you might expect. There is a waist twist here as well. It's hidden by his floating belt really nicely. Legs go out pretty much all the way. They kick forward, but you do have to worry about the rubbery kind of skirt piece that goes on down here. Kick backwards. There is a thigh twist up there. We do have our single jointed knee, and then you've got no boot cut. I wish there was, just for that little bit of added twist. He does have kind of the area right there where they could have cut that in, and then you've got rocker and you've got hinge down at those ankles. So, you know, despite the fact that he has the maybe slightly different bicep swivel, he is still very, very much a Motu Classic style figure in just about every respect. He just isn't a He-Man guy. Now, as far as the overall look and feel on this guy, he's definitely the plainest of all three when it comes to his design, but that's his design. This very much looks like Thorgrim from the movie. He has, you know, this very large, sweeping suit of leather armor, and I think it looks really nice here. It has a tremendous level of detail on it. The sculpt on this thing, I don't know, it looks like it was tedious to actually have to do this, because he's got all this sort of like checkerboard patterning with all of these little rivets all over it, and then these individually sculpted little, I mean, they almost look like little checkers on him, basically. So those are all individually sculpted, individually painted pieces with different finishes too. So you've got kind of like this, it's not matte, the armor piece, it's not like a matte finish, but it's also not glossy, but the rivets have a nice metallic sheen, and these little circles have a nice gloss to them. So he's got a number of different finishes on top of him. It just makes him kind of pop and stand out a little bit. You've got his, and I can't not see Deathlock from Marvel here. You've got the little sort of chainmail armor that he has on here that peeks through, and then you can actually see the remnants of that down here on the skirt piece, so it hangs down below the belt line. You can see it on the back as well. He does have this kind of adorned belt, and this is something that you can use to holster his sword as well, or sheath it rather, and it does have a lot of sculpt on it as well. And this guy looks, I mean, he very much looks like this in the movie. I went back just to double check and kind of watch some of this stuff again, and he looks very, very close to what this suit of armor looked like in the film. He's even got these sort of weird split pants, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. I have no idea, but you can see those creamy thighs in there peeking out. And of course he's got his telltale sword and sorcery kind of fantasy furry boots with the wraps on them. So he is really nicely done. This kind of look very much suits the Motu Classic style of figure, and of course that's very much what this guy is. If there's one thing about this guy that I really can't really tell if is a problem or not, is at the head sculpt. And there's something that either I'm seeing things or I just can't see past it, but there's something on this guy that just looks kind of weird. And that would be the eyes. Not the eyes themselves, but how they're placed. And I don't know if they're too wide set or not. I'm assuming that they're not, and I think it's most sort of like some visual trickery with this big bridge between the nose and the eyes there. It looks like this is making them look like they're further set apart than they actually are. I had my wife check him out as an impartial third party who doesn't care anything about this figure, Conan the Barbarian, or anything toy related as far as this guy goes, and she thinks that I am correct. I would love to know other people's opinions of it. It just looks to me like at times like his eyes seem like they're too far apart, but at the same time in other instances he looks fine. So maybe I'm just seeing things. Otherwise, I love this helmet design. It is wild, and there is a ton of detail on it. So, you know, you've got like the serpent design going up here on the bridge of the forehead there. You've got this really weird sort of like crown almost with this big open space. Tons of little rivets there. It's got a lot of black wash on it to make it look used and battle worn. And then you've got sort of like the chainmail skirt piece almost that hangs back along the head. I'm sure this has a name. I don't know it. And then of course you've got his flowing golden locks that hang over top of his armor that do prevent him from looking up, but still make him look very much like a bad guy in a nice big suit of armor. So I do think he looks really good. I do think I'm having a hard time seeing past whatever's going on with those eyes, but I also think that there's not necessarily a problem either, if that makes any sense. I see a problem, but I don't really think it's there. Does that work? Someone tell me. Now, as far as accessories goes, this guy has kind of I think he has the smallest of all of the figures in this wave, and I'm honestly not sure if that's truly a negative because he doesn't really have much to speak of that I can remember. Certainly not much in this particular look either, because this is sort of like the raiding party look at the beginning of the movie. And you've got an extra head sculpt to start with. It's okay. I don't know that I'm ever going to use this though, because, you know, at the same time, while I do think there is some sort of a weird eye thing going on with this guy, I'm still not sure if I'm right or wrong. I love this helmet, and this is the look for me. The other instance where I would like a figure of him is where he's like shirtless later on in the movie. So there's a couple other scenes for him as well with different looks. But he does look pretty good. No real issues with this. It is, however, noticeably less glossy than Conan's, which I think is kind of odd. So that's a good thing, but I think it's kind of an odd thing. And then we've got some actual weapons for this guy. We've got a sword, and his sword is pretty plain. There's really not a whole lot to write home about here, but that's the sword. So it's just got a normal sort of regular hilt with some wraps on it, and then you've got this sort of long blade. It is not nearly as long as Conan's sword is, which I think is a good thing here. And then you've got a little bit of a wash on it to bring out some of the detail, make it look a little worn and just battle ready. And then we've got my favorite weapon that he comes with. He comes with this big monster warhammer. This does, however, present an issue because this thing is big. It is too big to fit in his hands without maybe some heat. I've had to heat up the hands on mine because they're just kind of hard. So I err on the side of caution rather than trying to pry them apart, which is honestly a very, very difficult thing to do anyway. But he's got this big crazy warhammer, which I absolutely love. So you can have him bashing somebody's brains out with this. It does have a lot of sculpt on it, so all of this stuff is actually sculpted. All this wood grain is textured on there, so it's not just a flat piece. You've got the sort of point on this end. It's got a slight curve to the blade, and then it does have a rather thick handle. So you are probably going to want to heat up a hand to get this to be held easily, but once it's in there, it's not coming out, so you're not going to have to worry about it falling or anything like that. It does look really, really cool. And I mean, this is kind of a unique weapon anyway. So amongst all the stuff we get in this wave, this is the only thing like this. So it is very, very standoutish when it comes to all of the accessories in Conan Wave 1. So I really do like this thing. And it's definitely going to be my preference when it comes to what he's actually holding. You can, of course, take the sword and then put it down in the belt here if you want to kind of sheath that away. And like I always say, I do like weapon storage, so you can have that in his belt and this in his hand simultaneously. So overall, this is a pretty solid figure. Thorgrim isn't necessarily one that I was screaming to have. Like, basically, when it comes to Conan, it was always just Conan, Thulsa and, maybe Subutai is really what I truly wanted out of this stuff. But having Rexor and Thorgrim to round out Wave 1 is also really nice because their designs do lend themselves to this style of figure really well. This armor is really well done, really well sculpted and painted. He moves well enough for this style of figure, which of course is an antiquated style of figure, but I do still have a soft spot for these style of bodies. The only thing that I think is maybe a little negative on this guy is that he has whatever I can't seem to pin down with the eyes and the nose on that helmet. Something about it just seems kind of weird, but at the same time, it also doesn't, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but here we are. He does have a small array of accessories, but it's exactly what he needs, and he does come with the really cool Warhammer, which frankly is probably one of my favorite things in this entire wave. So that's going to do it for this look at the Conan Ultimates Thorgrim. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.